Hey everyone, my name is Marcos Pervalaris. As most of you probably know by now, I am the president of the Gonstead Club here at Palmer, Florida, and I am in ninth quarter.
Hi guys, I'm Kayla. I'm a quarter 4 and I'm a future officer of the Gonstead Club.
And what we're trying to do here tonight, and until we're able to get back in person, is we're going to try and deliver the closest thing to a real club that we can. I know we're in a very unfortunate situation right now, but that's no reason why we can't give you guys the information that we have and give you an opportunity to find a loved one, a spouse, a friend, anyone, a sibling to practice on while we go through this. So hopefully we can be on the right track when we get together again. Okay, so what we're going to start with is just a little explanation of the Gonstead system. So as I've said before to many of you guys that you've heard many times, but the Gonstead system is exactly what I just said. It's a system. It's not just a technique, it's not just an analysis, it's a combination of everything to make a full system that is well-rounded to make sure you're finding the subluxation and giving you the best way to remove it. So a little bit about the system. The first part that we do in every bit of the system is a thorough case history. That thorough case history gives you so much information and can already point you in a direction of where to go. So the thorough case history can tell you whether or not it's a sympathetic or parasympathetic subluxation. Again, I know these are new words that a lot of people aren't used to yet, but as you keep coming, I promise you, you will be used to it. It just tells you which system you want to be in and how you want to affect the body. It also tells you what's physiologically the issue and what nerve is physiologically causing the issue. Is it a kidney problem, a pancreas problem, thyroid, adrenal gland, you name it. We can pretty much trace that nerve back to which spinal unit it's coming from and what subluxation is causing this physiological imbalance, which chemical imbalance, and it can really point us in a really close direction to what the problem is. After that, we get into instrumentation, and that instrumentation it's a dual probe instrument, and what it tells us, it's actually right here. And what this thing tells us is where there's nerve root irritation. So this instrument right here will tell us where the nerve root irritation is because it detects temperature bilaterally through the spine. But what happens directly at a subluxated spot is that it'll tell us, it shows two chemical mediators that are very important. Substance P and CGRP are what makes this nervous scope have a sharp deflection. That's why when we go through the spine like this, and this nerve root's irritated, these chemicals are there, right? When I get to it, the scope will break to this side. And that's why it could be 30,000 times hotter on this side, and it can stay over there, but once we get to that nerve root, it'll always be more proficient than that right side at that exact spot. So that's why this is very specific, very amazing, and it can tell you pretty exactly which disc and nerve root is responsible for the problem. After this, we can get into static palpation. Static palpation is used to locate again what's going on in a subluxated vertebra. So to start with static palpation, we just feel the paravertebral musculature on the spine. We press in, and what this does is it kind of pushes out all these chemical mediators in the dermis that can even expose that instrument reading even more. So just by palpating that with our thenar pad, and we'll feel for, is there any extra hot spots? This is what doctors used before they invented the nervoscope back in early 1920s, 1919. They used this to know where the issue was because they called it hot boxes. This is still very reliable to this day. You can find a hot box, and then once you're in a certain area, there's this thing called sudoriferous edema. That sudoriferous edema is just a fancy name for a tacky feeling on the skin. So when you're rubbing down the spine and one spot feels extra sticky, that's a pretty good indication that there is some dysfunction going on in that area. So that's why static palpation is so important for us, and we need to be very, very good static palpators. After that, we can go into motion palpation, and motion palpation is just strictly telling us what is fixated. That's the only thing it's able to tell us, and that's the only information it can give us. Is it fixated? As we said before, the Gonstead system is able to put all of these things together not just rely on one bit of information. So motion palpation will tell us which segment's fixated and where the nucleus is positioned. So not only is it important to know what joint's fixated, but it even can tell us where the nucleus pulposus has shifted after the injury at the disc has occurred. This is again important because that's where we want to make our line of drive to put the body of the disc, body of the vertebrae, on top of that nucleus. This is why we must motion palpate very softly, soft fingers, and very minimal movement. Just like this. We're not going to be pumping anything hard because then we are not going to be specific for our issue. And we want to be specific because to be scientific in this world, you must be specific. So after motion palpation, we get into visualization. Now we visualize the spine for many different things. What are the muscles doing on each side? Is there stacking? When we laterally flex someone, do the bones just stay together? When we do a gait analysis, are the hips rocking properly when we're walking? Is the lumbar spine rocking back and forth properly when you walk? Is the sacrum rocking properly when we walk? This gait analysis can tell us what is the problem. Is it the ilium? Is it the sacrum? Is it the lumbars? This can really, again, point us in a direction, which is very important. Another part of visualization is using the gluteal fold to see which listing of an ilium is. After that, lastly, we come to our x-ray analysis. Now, the x-ray analysis is extremely important for so many reasons. There are so many congenital dysfunctions and just structural dysfunctions that we can't feel with our hands. We can't feel a spondy with our hands, no matter how great of palpators we are. You can't feel a spondy. You can't feel a blocked vertebra. You can't feel many things that are just very specific to how you treat your patient. So instead of becoming indifferent to our patients, we include this piece of analysis to make sure we are, again, being specific and scientific. Now, again, we said this is a Gonstead system. It is not just Gonstead palpation. It's not just Gonstead instrumentation. It's not just Gonstead history. It's not just Gonstead adjusting. It is a system that combines all of the information we just talked about for every single patient to make sure we can have a specific adjustment for that specific patient at that specific time to make sure they get better, and they get better a lot faster.
Okay, awesome. So now that we've talked about how important it is to be specific, we're going to talk about the specific tables that we actually use in the Gonstead system. That's amazing. So the first one here is the cervical chair. The best part about it is that you have this awesome back where it's completely adjustable. So you're going to be able to find that exact location that your patient is going to be most relaxed, and they're going to be ready to receive that adjustment. In addition to that, another thing that really helps out with your adjusting is to make sure that you have proper stability. So it's kind of like a seatbelt. It goes across your patient so they can't get away from you. But it really, really makes a huge difference with making sure that you give like the best adjustment with the right intent for that patient. So this is a really, really great chair. And it's also one of the best chairs for adjusting cervicals, and we'll talk about that in another club. But our next one that's also really cool, this one also has a strap, is actually the knee chest. What's neat about this is that actually the patient gets into a kneeling position, which allows the spine to kind of relax down into a P to A motion, which is where you're going to be putting your adjustment. So you're actually going to be able to lift that segment and put it on top of the disc the way you would on any of the other tables. Again, stabilization is key. So we have this strap over here to help stabilize, and that's really important. And it's also adjustable. So you have these super cool leaves. There's one in the front, there's one in the back. There's even a pediatric setting, which is really important because you have so many ways to adjust whatever patient walks in your door, whether it's a 450-pound person or a small child.
And the great thing about this is she just said you can adjust pediatrics, you can also adjust infants. Because of the size of this headpiece, it's specifically designed for if you have an infant that's a year or two old. You can just place them right here, and this works as pretty much like a slot table that's also in the Gonstead system. So you can place them right here with this nice and thick foam padding, and they would have a great chance at this. Also, another thing that is really great about this table is it's the great equalizer. Is there someone that she just said comes in that's 400 pounds, I'm not too big, I'm pretty tiny, but I can definitely move a bone that needs to be moved on this table because gravity and the position of the patient works in our favor. Lastly, the most amazing thing about this table is you can adjust absolutely every segment in the spine. So you can adjust an occiput all the way down to the coccyx on this table. So if you have trouble in the Gonstead system, not being able to set a person in a chair on the pelvic bench, this table is always a great backup to have to make sure that you can get that subluxated vertebra unsubluxated.
And then our last table that we're going to talk about today is actually the pelvic bench. This is really good for obviously adjusting the pelvis, and you can also do lumbars on it. In addition, you can also do some extremity work on here, so it's really great. All the tables, as you can see, are actually made with fabric, which is really important because it allows, again, stability for your patients so they're not moving around on the tables, and they just look nice.
And they're also made specifically for you. So this is my set at my house right now, and this is made for me because if I go up to this pelvic bench, I put my foot up, it's right at the bottom of my patella tendon. So that's the size that you want to work on for a pelvic bench for when you have your benches or you're in school, whenever we do get back, and you can have the right bench for you. And that's very important as well. So what we're going to go into next is going to be some landmarks for the lower lumbar pelvic area. Okay, so this is a great opportunity if you have a friend, a sibling, a spouse at your place. This is a great time to grab them and get some hands-on practice on. If you don't live with anyone, call up any one of your friends, put in your group chat, say, hey, we're gonna practice a little bit because we're not gonna let our hands get raw. And we need to constantly, as chiropractors, keep working our fine touch because if we're not soft and we're not specific, we're gonna be rough, and just gross movement is not what patients need when they're actually unwell. So that's what we're trying to focus on, the patient that actually needs acute help, not the normal wellness patients that we see. We want to be able to help the worst cases, so every case after that is a lot easier to handle.